Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 243 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, it's post-mortem time for CF Montreal. We'll give our impressions on the end of the season press conferences, give our end of season evaluation on the goalkeepers and defenders for CF Montreal, and so much more. As always, as every Sunday night, I'm joined by the wonderful Elias Grigoriadis. What's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm terrible, but we're not going to talk about
it. Hey, I saw the clips.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I saw the clips. They went viral. Pretty
What
ugly. Pretty ugly day for Lamin.
I don't know what you're talking about. Dude, men's soccer is so dumb. That's why I only watch women's soccer.
Oh man.
Men's soccer is such a waste of time, man. It's so lame.
We have a few people with us today. Thank you guys for joining us. We have LP Habs fan with us. Evening boys, been a minute. Yes sir, welcome back. He always brings a little bit of positivity to us, Elias, so always happy to have you around. Patrick White, that was rough, he says, but glory Man United. Okay. Elias is there's a vein showing it. How are you guys doing? How's your weekend besides soccer? Is everything are you enjoying the weather?
I don't have a weekend besides soccer. It's ruined.
I guess that's our move to our next topic.
No, I mean it was all right. I went to brunch with my parents and that was cute.
Nice.
But other than that, it was pretty chill. Not really much going on.
Is the craziness this past times that Montreal is on Netflix for some for a good or bad reason. Whatever. And LP House fan that says, "Man, you and CF Montreal fan, are you a masochist or something?" Yeah, it's the bull. Hey Tate, hey guys. So yeah, Montreal, as I was saying, was a Netflix. They had the Montreal Expos show. Elias, did you get a chance to watch it by any chance? Did you? Okay.
I'm not a big baseball guy. I've never been a big baseball guy. That being said, my dad did try. To get me into baseball. There's a picture of me with Gary Carter. I don't know how that happened, but it exists of me, like 5-year-old me with Gary Carter. Yeah. I have an Expos helmet in my apartment somewhere, but I don't know. These last 2 weeks have been the most baseball I've ever watched in my entire life.
Oh yeah. Oh, because the Blue Jays. Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's the problem when you're friends with baseball fans and you like spending time with them, is that you unfortunately at some point, if their team is good, have to watch baseball.
Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm old school. I don't know. I don't know what I am, but when I'm a fan of a city, of a sport, or of a, in this case Montreal, be it hockey, I don't care if Montreal doesn't have a baseball team. I cannot root for a team in Toronto. I can't do it. I just can't. Maybe I know.
I don't root for them because I don't care for baseball. But if I was a baseball fan, I probably wouldn't be a Blue Jays fan realistically.
I can't. I hear so many people.
If I was actually a baseball fan, the two teams I would hate the most is probably the Blue Jays, and the Nationals, because that's where Montreal they're going, right? Yeah. Yes. And also the Yankees. Fuck the Yankees. I don't know.
We can't curse the first 5 minutes, Elias. We're ruining our
watch. We're 6 minutes and 43 seconds in. So I'm good.
but yeah. So no, it's really, honestly, I was telling you a little bit about it before the show, Elias. I never really got to let's go. And you know what? Just to tell you, Elias, my wife told me last night she was driving back on the Pont Champlain, in Champlain Bridge. And she saw that they had the little traffic sign there in the bridge that said "Allez Blue Jays, let's go." And I'm thinking oh man, we're at
no, what I think is really funny is what was it? 2 nights ago was game 1. 2 or 3 nights ago was game 1, right?
Yeah.
And the CN Tower got lit up red and black instead of blue and white because the Raptors were having their home opener. And everyone's like, are you kidding me? Game 1 of the World Series is tonight in Toronto, and you've got it lit up for the Toronto Raptors?
Disconnected, man. We're disconnected. Yeah, no.
Read the room. That was hilarious. I got a kick out of it because I didn't care, but everyone in the comments was very upset. I mean, rightfully so. But it was
It's tough, man.
Philadelphia.
Like I said, I understand that people say we want to root for because I asked my wife. My wife's like, I'm rooting for the Toronto Blue Jays. She doesn't know nothing about baseball, but she's just rooting
Uh,
for the Canadian team. And I'm like, but I can't do it. I can't. I can
look.
do it.
If you're not like, is she a baseball fan?
No, she knows
If
nothing.
if you're not a fan of the sport, then I personally like, you know what, whatever brings you joy. If
Yeah.
you're an actual baseball fan who's grown up their entire life in Montreal and you're a Blue Jays fan, I don't get it. You could like to see Canadian team do better than other teams, but if you're an actively a Blue Jay, I don't get it.
And listen, we're not
Especially
saying
if you were an Expos fan before that. Like, I mean, what? I don't care
if
if they didn't actually have a rivalry because they were in different leagues. That's football. That's football.
we're not saying that you're wrong in believing this. Anybody that is rooting
That's
for the
exactly
Blue
what I'm
Jay,
saying.
Elias is saying it. I'm not saying it. What I'm saying is I can't do it myself. I get it that other people can, but the little tidbit that I wanted to mention because there was the whole saga. I never lived it because I left Montreal before the Expos left the city. I lived here in Montreal during the time that they were big. They were very good. But when I moved to Florida, to Miami, I actually uh, the Marlins were owned by Loria and Sampson and all these guys that did the wonderful work with the Expos. Wink, wink. And what do you think they did, Elias? Once they took the reins of the Florida Marlins, of the time Florida Marlins, they did the same exact thing they did for the Expos. They built up a team, built them, won a World Series in 1997, won another World Series in 2003, and then it was a fire sale. Everybody goes, and
C'est le
so
nouveau projet sportif. You know, what can I say?
yeah. No, it was, and actually there was. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into it, but
Is this
but
is this a baseball podcast? What are we doing here?
let's get it. All right. So before we get started, just a quick reminder, you guys, if you like what you listen from us in the show, make sure to like us on X, Blue Sky. Just show the support for the Ball is Wrong. We're everywhere. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Blue Sky X, as I mentioned. Any like, any share helps us. But thank you so much for those of you who are joining tonight. Elias, we have a loaded show tonight. You know, this is a postmortem. We have a lot to talk about. If you guys hang on, we really, really hope you guys hang on with us till the end of the night because it's gonna be fun. We're gonna make it dynamic. A lot to talk about. Huge week. They were like we talked it off about it off the air, Elias. It's not very frequent that CF Montreal announces things so early in the offseason, but they were ready. They had these announcements.
What else are you gonna do the last 2 months of the season? You
That's what
know,
you can.
other
That's
than
what we
have
were
nothing to
asking
it.
last year. That's what we were asking last year, right? We were asking like,
Last year
what
they
the
made the
what?
playoffs. Last
Yeah.
year they made the playoffs, though, right? The year before that, they missed out at the last second. The year before that was their best season. Like it's been a long time since they were like, shit, it's been 2 months and we have nothing. You know, like it's been a
Yeah.
while. They've always been competitive in some capacity all the way until decision day. I can
Yeah.
remember last time a decision day was this boring, right?
It was just another preseason game for us. But the point being is they gave us a lot of content to talk about today. There was
They did that. They did.
there were the roster announcements. They were also the end of season press conference with Player Scrum, which you were present at, Elias, at both, and we'll talk about it. But just before we get into the whole CF Montreal thing, let's talk about the Canada women's national team,
Yep.
who had a game on Thursday against Switzerland that they lost 1-0. We're gonna quickly go over it because it is a friendly game, but it's a loss nonetheless.
Yep.
So friendly game. What were your thoughts?
Weird, because I don't think they played badly. I mean they created a lot more chances than what I'm used to seeing from them, which is something I really liked, but it was uncharacteristically poor in front of goal. You know, Olivia Smith, who got hurt very early, ended up it turns out it's a hip pointer. She'll be out 2 to 4 weeks, so it's nothing too serious. Thank God she was carted off, so it's never a good look when your most promising striker, you know, who's tearing it up at Arsenal, one of the biggest clubs in Europe, all of a sudden is, you know, carted off the field. It's terrible, right? It's literally the worst case scenario in the international break for a friendly. But she's going to be fine. You know, it's not the long term injury, thankfully. And besides that, honestly, my biggest thing was it's a lack of finishing. They were not succinct in front of net, which is very rare because Canada has had to, just because of the way they play, have had to be extremely efficient in front of goal because they just didn't create enough chances, and so they balance that out by being really good and really clinical. And this was one of the first times where it was the other way around. They created a bunch of chances. They had, at least a half dozen golden opportunities. I'm talking about like, point blank or uncontested shot in the penalty area. And they just could not figure out this defense, kind of figure out the keeper. They missed the target, all this stuff. So it was extremely frustrating. And, the one goal was just, it's one of those messes that you look back and you're like, oh my God, right? You kind of feel almost powerless when you're not the one playing in the penalty area, and it's brutal. But besides that, I mean, for a friendly with some people that uh, aren't necessarily in for starting contention, people like Emma Reagan, I did not hate her game. Jade Rose and Gabriel Kau and Shalina Zadorsky, who were, yeah, I mean, Jade Rose is obviously, a starter and she's fantastic, but Shalina Zadorsky and Gabriel Carl are people that are definitely in contention for starting spots, but are not necessarily locked in. Especially when Kadisha Buchanan and Vanessa Gilles come back. Although you had Ashley Lawrence off the bench, so this back line is still very solid. But the back line that was fielded on Thursday, sorry, was not they're heavy hitters. And so because of that, it did look, it was interesting because I did like a lot of what I saw. Jade Riviere, who again just continues to impress me. She's getting better and better with every passing game that she plays with the national team. And she was the best, defender going forward, absolutely. And when Switzerland dropped into that defensive shape, she was the key, right? She was breaking people down. She was unlocking with a really good cross, and the delivery is exceptional. So I think all in all, it's obviously disappointing, but for a game against Holland next week, I think it's a good stepping stone. But again, results are, you look at the result, you see a 1-0 loss, you can't help but be disappointed.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. And I know that you talked a little bit about the players, but can you just show us the lineup of Thursday's games? We just want to
I
kind of look
don't
at it.
actually have the line.
Oh, you don't have it? It's all good. We'll move
I
on.
can find the
Well,
lineup in 2 seconds.
no, it's all good. We'll move on. We'll move on. We got a
Yeah,
big
okay. The
show.
lineup is right here. Okay, Kaylin Sheridan was in nets. The back line was Shalina Zadorsky, Jade Riviere, Jade Rose, and Gabriel Cal. In the midfield, it was Jessie Fleming and Emma Regan, and then you had a front four of Julia Grosso. So it was a 4-3-3. Sorry, and Janine Sonis, Adriana Leon, and Olivia Smith were the forwards up top.
Yeah.
And look, go like the front three is what you could realistically expect if you include Evelyn Vien, Chloe Lacasse, and obviously Marie Esmenaldou. That is your attacking core. Jordan Heidema is also there. She came in as a sub, and I don't think she played terribly. She played in a bit of a 10 position. I kind of dug it, but that is your attacking core. And this starting lineup is, besides the back line, is fairly strong. But it's definitely has some pieces missing if you're looking at the entire talent pool that Canada has, and hopefully for what is the 2027 Women's World Cup will be a bit more expensive.
Yeah. And I did want to talk to you about that because this is the second loss in a row for Casey Stoney's gang. What does Casey Stoney need to do to get the team back in track?
I don't think it's anything you have to do. I think it's more, this we haven't seen the full strength. I mean, all guns blazing starting 11 in some time because of injury or availability or something else. And I think that's the biggest problem is that you see all these other national teams that they have the good fortune of either everyone playing in the same league or everyone playing on the same page or everyone playing, on the same team. If you look at some of these clubs like France and Spain, and they play together, and that way, maybe injuries or their physical fitness is tracked a bit more closely, and they end up playing together a lot more. This Canadian women's team, they're again the best 11 players on the pitch. I can't remember the last time I saw them together. So that's probably the biggest thing is when will this team have all its guns back? Because again, for this game against Holland on Tuesday, they're not going to have everyone back. We're still, like we mentioned, we're still missing a lot of people, including now Olivia Smith to add on top of that.
Yeah. Are you concerned by any chance? I'm just kind of adding a question here because I did think about it when I saw that. Obviously, the first thing I check when I see that lineup being announced, is the call up. Sorry, the call up squad for this friendly, and I don't see any players from Roses FC, not even for the bench. Does that concern you at all? I mean, is that worrisome? Because you do want to see Roses FC have that kind of ambition with its squad, with its player, to be able to
Yeah,
bring players on to the team during the off season, right?
yeah, but there was only there was one call up that ended up making the match day squad, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Okay.
It's Emma Regan, and that's it, I believe. Yeah. And Florian Jold.
Hollywood.
Um, that's it though, right? So honestly, wait, Florian Jold. I believe she played.
From the
Because
NSL, was Hollywood called up too?
well, she wasn't on the match day squad.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's the thing, right? Like I'm not too concerned that there were no roses because again, when you look at the level of NSL, it's definitely exceeded my expectations. But you look at the quality, and a lot of people have some ways to go. There's definitely a lot of the younger players with a lot of potential to end up competing for spots, especially squad rotation spots on the national team. But there's still steps that have to be taken,
Mm.
and the national team is so full of world class talent that you cannot hold the players in the NSL to this standard. And if they don't make the national team, this league is failing. That's it's a bit much, but I think it's definitely an objective. But they have to be talking about 2-3 years from now, getting players from multiple teams in the Canadian and American national team.
Yeah. All right. And just last question before we move on to our next topic. So next game is Tuesday against the Netherlands. Is it a must win to you, Elias? Or and what will you be looking for in that game?
Again, the squad is probably gonna be heavily rotated. I'm looking for anything I can find promising. Right? Anything, whether it's midfield combinations, whether it's going forward, I want people to kind of go out there and prove themselves because that's pretty much it. This is a very what's the I'm trying to find a diplomatic word, but this is a heavily rotated. That's where I'm going with national team selection right
A
now,
friendly.
right? Because but not just that, just the players called up, right? We talked about how many people are missing, and squad players are missing as well. So you have squad players that are promoted up to starting position, and they have the chance now to prove themselves. But there is a gulf in quality between the starters now and the best players available, or the best players that are in the Canadian talent pool that aren't necessarily available due to injury.
Okay. So yeah, and do you think it's a must win? Because I think it's starting to become like a win just for the moral of the
Yeah,
squad,
yeah, morale. I wouldn't say it's a
the
must win.
morale.
I
Yeah,
say it's definitely a high priority just to get a result in the bag because it's been since the summer, right? When they beat Haiti 3-1. That's Saputo was their last time, was their last win, right? They haven't played all that much, but again, when you start to look back, it's been months since we've won. You want
yeah,
to improve the morale a bit, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean by a must win. Not necessarily for it to look good in the sheet of paper, but necessarily for Casey Stoney's squad to kind of have some kind of momentum in the next friendlies. All right, let's move on to our next topic. So we talked about
Well,
a
it's
little bit
post
earlier.
mortem time.
Post-mortem time, but even before we do the evaluation, let's talk about some of the off-season decisions that have been defined, that have been announced. First off, we have the moves that CF Montreal announced. So CF Montreal exercised the contract options of defenders Brandon Craig, Luca Petrasso, as well as midfielder Matty Longstaff. The club has also signed goalkeeper Sebastian Bereza to a contract extension for the 2026 and 2027 seasons. The deal includes options for years for 2028 and 2029. This is the important one. CF Montreal will not exercise the contract options of defender Fernando Alvarez, midfielders Bryce Duke, as well as forward Giacomo Vrioni. Midfielder Alessandro Biello is currently on loan, and as of today, he is no longer. It said the club will take a decision when he returns from his loan. Now, technically, he's already returned from his loan. Finally, the club has come to a contract termination agreement with defender Tom Pierce. All right, so those were decisions that were announced Monday. Yeah, Monday.
Yep.
I was so surprised when I saw it on Monday. What was your reaction? Actually, what was your reaction when you saw that, Elias? The
Not a
first reading of
single
it.
piece of news surprised me.
Okay.
Not a single thing, right? Craig, Petrasso, and Longstaff, all solid squad players, right? We'll get into the details about it, right, when we do their postmortems individually, but either this week or next week. But all three of them solid squad players, not necessarily starting caliber on their day, maybe, but you know, good, reliable MLS level players. Same thing goes for Sebastian Breza, squad player, glue guy. He won the Grinta Trophy. He won the Jason DeTulio Trophy after playing 2 games. How do you do that? By being a vital guy in the dressing room. And any player will tell you how important he is for morale, for the environment, just how good he is to be in a locker room. And anyone that's played sports at any level knows people or remembers players that were just, no matter how good or bad they were instantly so important in the locker room, whether it was because they're funny and because they get along with everyone, or because they can motivate people because they light a fire under someone's ass. And Sebastian Breza is one of those guys, right? He works hard, he understands his role, and you can tell, right? He's the one that stands up on the bench the second most after Marco Donadel. He's super passionate, and you need guys like that, right? Everyone's gonna, you people can sit there and be like, oh, why is he taking it so seriously? He never plays. Doesn't matter, right? He's part of the team, he's part of the environment, and he is integral to the emotional and the morale part of it. So honestly, super deserved. On the other hand, the people leaving, not a single thing surprised me.
Yeah.
Right? Fernando Alvarez is more disappointing considering the rumors that they could have cashed in on him last year. But, at the beginning of the season, Laurent Courtois was the coach and he was the only left-footed center back. So in a back three, that's crucial. I'm not too surprised that he stuck around. But, when some players can adapt to moving to a four-back, especially mid-season, and he's one of those guys. He instantly looked uncomfortable, and, it is what it is. Giacomo Vrioni, it kind of goes without saying. Bryce Duke, it breaks my heart, but nobody was happy in this situation.
Hey, man.
It was an unhappy marriage on both ends, right? Let's be honest. So that's unfortunate, but c'est la vie. And Tom Pierce,
Never came back from his brother's wedding, I guess.
No, right? So exactly. We'll talk a bit more about it when we get to the players, but
yes,
not a single millimeter, microcosm of surprise in that, on any of the decisions.
I completely agree with you. I wasn't surprised. More than anything, just the only thing that I was surprised about was how quick they did it. But I'm happy. When I say surprised, I don't mean that in a negative way. I know surprise can come off as almost as negative, but I'm very surprised and in a good way that they said, we've made the decision, it's done. Here you have it. That's point final. So I really, really like the fact that they did it quickly. Not surprised at all by the decisions themselves, because I think the surprise elements of the decisions of some of the names that have not been renewed or are not coming back kind of disappeared for me once Joel Waterman left the club. That's when I knew, like, okay, this is the kind of offseason we're going to be expecting. This is the kind of rebuild we're expecting. These these names that have been here a little too long have to go. And that includes the Bryce Dukes, which I was going to tell you. Bryce Duke does have his little fan club here in Montreal. So a few people that actually
I was part of it. I thought he was, I didn't think he was, Ricky Pooch, but I think he was all right,
I just think that this club was very patient with him as a player. He deserved it. They deserved to. I mean, he deserved to have a club that was patient with him. But in the circumstances that he came after such a successful year at CF Montreal and Georgi Mihailovic having left, he came under a lot of pressure to perform at a high level instantly, and he wasn't capable of it. And then it was a very, again, these are rumors, Elias. These are not truths, but it was tough for him under Hernan Losada, and it affected him a lot. And he was never really be able to come back, regardless who the coach was or what the scheme was. And it's just, anyways, like you said, we're going to talk about this more when we go into the actual player's profile. But not surprised at all, but surprised at the timing in a good way. Next up, we have Marco Donadel, who was confirmed. It was, honestly, I think it was probably the worst kept secret, because it just felt like it was the writing on the wall for everybody. But yeah, okay, so we did take a poll as to whether Marco Donadel should come back next year or not, and the fan poll gave us a 53.1 in favor of Donadel staying if it was the right choice. So the fans, I still believe 53.1, Elias, is kind of a split decision. It's not a
It's
convinced.
very low. It's
Yeah,
not a high approval rate.
is
Let's just put it
not
that way.
convinced. And I think it's easy to blame it on him. There were games where maybe he wasn't the best coach, in my opinion, but these are growing pains. Um, I've said it in this show before, and and I'll say it again. I thought it was a huge mistake of his to continue getting those yellow cards, or for at least his bench to not figure out a way to get him
Mhm.
suspended. So next year it's going to be crucial for him to be at his, let's say, best behavior so he can be present in the bench with whatever staff he has. But they have to find the system. They have to know that Marco Donadel can lose his shit at any point in
Yeah.
the game, and they have to find a way to keep him because he has to stay cool headed and has to continue being a coach for this team. And Elias, I'm sorry, but if you're not in the sidelines and you're not your coach of your team, then your message kind of isn't going across the way it should be because you're taking yourself out of the game and you're telling your players to be disciplined on the field. So I think it's a right choice. I think he deserves one full off season and not 5 games in the season, hopefully a whole
Mhm.
season, with players that fit his scheme.
Yeah.
Now, we've been told in the past, you and I have heard it, that he did have proposals that were rejected by the club. That's not a bad thing. That happens in every club. I think coaches have their favoritism for certain players, but it won't always happen. But now it also becomes, as now that he has that title, how much more important is his say in the table? When it comes to these signings. So, what do you think, Elias, about the announcement?
Not surprised, right? Another thing you have to take into consideration is the stability part of it, right? You're in a rebuild, heads are going to be rolling, and there's going to be a lot of change. You need some element of stability, some part of the infrastructure of the club outside of, like, the people making decisions. I'm talking about the people on the field in the dressing room. You had to have some level of stability. And if half the squad is leaving or a third of the squad is leaving or whatever, you got a bunch of players coming in, you got a bunch of different personalities that you don't necessarily know how they're going to gel. The most important thing is making sure that you have some stabilizing force, and that is the coaching staff returning, right? We haven't heard anything about David Sauvry, but he's another integral piece that should stick around if they can get him to stay. But Marco Donadel, as far as his coaching chops, like we've talked about, our concerns, I still think the man-to-man is dubious at best. I don't think it's like a long-term viable solution tactically. I do think it was a kind of a gut punch to kind of just wake everybody up and say we're doing something completely different. I'd like to see over the course of the winter them work on tweaking that a little bit, making it a bit less man-to-man. If you want to have man-to-man elements on the pitch, that's fine. That exists in every single defensive scheme in all of world football. But when you have, like, 2/3 of your players and like, or 8 out of your 10 outfielders are playing man to man, that's too much. It's
Yeah,
not sustainable, and it's too easy to play through when you play against top level teams. We saw it against Cincinnati at the end of the season. We saw it against a half dozen teams, uh, you know, home and away. So I think the biggest thing, and Robbie says it here. Hi, Robbie, by the way, nice to see you. Is the players like him?
yeah,
It took a while, but he got the entire locker room to buy what he was selling. And that's the most important thing, because by the end of the season, you had players actively lobbying for him to the media, right? They would ask, and they wouldn't say like, oh, it's the front office's decision, and I like him, but we respect it. No, they're like, I want him here,
yeah,
right? You get Prince Owusu to have a complete 180 in not just the way he's playing, but the way he carries himself. And it's not a coincidence, right? Marco Donadel has tapped into something in terms of connecting with all the players in a man management perspective. So from that in that case, 100% he's the right guy for the job. I need to see some kind of evolution from and in X's and O's, and tactically, I need to see that he's grown and that he's willing to make some concessions, because man to man was fun for a bit, but it's too easy to play through,
yeah.
especially on the road.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I did speak about him being present on the on the sideline, and being that kind of person. But you're absolutely right. Tactically, it felt like his tactics sometimes did not adapt well to the league, and that's something that he's gonna have to find a middle ground between his tactic that he loves, like you mentioned, the man to man, or the offense that he likes to run, while at the same time adapting to the MLS play, because the MLS play doesn't necessarily fit that kind of. So it's going to be a big year for him. We're talking about. I know a lot of people talk about the product on the field and the talents and the players. 100%, you're right to talk about that. But at the end of the day, Marco Donadel also is going to have a big year in the sense of what decisions he's going to make as far as tactics from day one, Elias. Because if the past seasons tell us anything, this team is going to have a rough start. I'm sorry, Elias. This season is going to have is probably next season is probably going to be the same tough start for them. So yeah, no, it's good to hear that Marco Donadel is going to be back. Excited to see what else he brings us next season. But that moves us on from the topics of the decisions that were done in the offseason. We're going to talk just a little bit about the post game press conference, because I'll tell you this, Elias. I told you how surprised I was about the announcements that they made. They made the players on Monday and Marco Donadel announcement on Tuesday, and then the player scrum followed on Tuesday after the player announcements, and Marco Donadel's press conference with Lucas Saputo followed up after Marco Donadel's announcement, which kind of takes questions out of the press conference or the player scrum because decisions have already been made. The only awkward one that I can imagine, Elias, you were there at the player scrum. The only weird one that I can imagine is Jonathan Sirois being there because there's no
It was
decision
a, it
made.
was a, it was a very weird. It wasn't weird, but he seems to. Again, we'll talk about it a bit when we talk about
Yes.
Jean Sirois,
Yeah.
but he seems to be embracing this goalie battle. Right? He's like, I'm not going anywhere, and I'll fight for my spot. Um, I think it's. I mean, there's no really other answer. You can't just sit there and go, I want to be the starting goalie. Like you have to. You accept competition when it's presented to you.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic next year, when things are more even, and Marco Nadal really has to make a decision of you're my number one, because I don't believe in splitting. Like, unless you have two world class goalies, you can do that. If not, you have to make a decision, and Marco Nadal will have to make a decision about who his starting guy is, because again, they both play differently, they both carry themselves differently, and you need your defense to be accustomed to a certain style of goalkeeping and a certain style of player that's behind you.
You know what team is doing switching of goalkeeping all the time this season?
Two
Portland.
players that are national team level, yeah,
Portland.
you can do that. But again, James Pantemis is the better goalie.
Ah,
Maxime Crepeau has a higher status, but if you look at who was the goalie last year in the playoffs, if you look at the goalie who was going to be the goalie this year in the playoffs before James Pantemis got hurt, it was James Pantemis. James Pantemis has been outplaying Maxime Crepeau in direct comparison now, right? This is not like, comparing Maxime Crepeau and Dane Sinclair in two different teams, two different setups. This is, I play for the same team. I'm in training with the same player every day. We play with the same defense. James Pantemis is outperforming Maxime Crepeau. He has been doing it for a year and a half.
yeah.
And it's just, he seems to be super unlucky because every time he gets a chance with the national team, something messes it up, whether it's an injury or whatever. So that's a bit of a bummer. But you know, I think James Pantemis is the better keeper.
All right. Can you can you imagine the world we're living in where James Patemis lost his spot to Jonathan Sirois? Patemis goes to Portland, is rotating with Maxime Crepeau. I mean, listen to the names I'm saying. These are all Quebecois goalkeepers that
Yep.
are making standout marks in the MLS. It's crazy to think of. Anyways, it was just a reflection. So next, any important takes away? I know we talked about specifically about Jonathan Sirois, but were there any surprises? Anything that stood out to you during the player scrum?
Nothing too
Anything that was said?
surprising, really. Um, no, nothing really. I mean,
Okay.
Samed Piet was there after his surgery. Hopefully he's going to be all right. Obviously,
With the
after
Expos.
after surgery, yeah, fantastic jacket. Oh my god! But
Shit.
from like just a purely a health perspective, it's weird because you don't do anything, and my mom has the same thing. You don't do anything, you're fine. The second you do any kind of quick movement, physical activity, all of a sudden it hits you again. So it's like shit. I got to really do nothing until it completely resets, and it's tough to gauge. But he's got 3 months. He'll be all right. There's no other really main big takeaways though.
Yeah.
Oh, Waterman. Oh, is Chicago in pens or just he their penalty taker?
Yeah. So they're in penalty kicks, and I guess,
Oh shit.
yeah, Joel Waterman missed the last penalty.
Oh no.
Thank you, Matthew, for the update.
Joel. Yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna
Both
move.
center backs missed. Oh, this is bad for my brand. Oh, this is bad for my brand. Center back penalties are usually the best thing. They
Oh,
don't miss.
oh,
And
man.
oh, actually,
Not
4 goals in the last 20 minutes. That must have been a fantastic end of the game. Ended
nothing.
2-2. All 4 goals happened after the 70th minute. That's fantastic.
This is a CF Montreal pod. Okay, we don't care about other games except when Joel Waterman leaves to other teams.
Or apparently other sports.
No, but anyway, oh, man. So next day we have the end. Oh, I had a question for you. Was Sunusi Ibrahim there in the players' car?
Of course he wasn't there. We asked. We asked
You
for
did.
him and for Mahala, and neither one was given. I will say
Oh,
this. I will say this.
yeah.
Huge chapeau to the media relations people.
Yes.
For the whole season, obviously they've been great and they hooked us up with some cool interviews, but also just the end of year thing because they decided to do a full mix zone in the dressing room. And anything about me in a journalistic capacity, I hate mix zones. It's too chaotic, it's poorly organized, and too much stuff gets missed. They did a fantastic job at layering the players so you didn't actually miss anything. They gave you a wide variety of options. Everyone, I feel bad because Guboglu and I don't think Guboglu or Graham Roche, um, spoke to the media. They were
Yeah.
there for 5 minutes, but all the players got the chance to speak to the media. All the and it was fantastic. This was the best mix zone I've ever been a part of. So chapeau to them. But there was no real takeaway. It's a beautiful locker room though. It's a nice
Okay.
locker room.
I actually wanted to ask you how that experience went because I know every year, I don't know when was the last time they had a mix zone, Montreal Impact or TF Montreal,
Not since
but
COVID.
I wanted to know I wanted to know how it's gone because it's not
Not since
usually
COVID.
like
They
that.
haven't done a mix zone.
It also probably helps out a lot the players because they feel less pressure as opposed to usually at the end of the season when you ask one player a bunch
It
of
was much more casual. It was
yeah,
much more casual because of the fact that not everyone was sitting down in front of a microphone with a glass of water like you're on trial or something.
yeah.
But in the locker room, yeah, it just felt a lot more
Um,
conversational.
the next day we had the press conference with Marco Donata and Lucas Aputo.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my impressions, Elias. I wasn't in the room, but it felt like pretty straightforward. I mean, it really felt like it wasn't. It didn't feel like the usual season-ending press conference that we've got in the past year, where it's very tense, a lot of questions, a lot of like, you know, the club really being hiding stuff. It
Yeah.
really felt transparent. Um,
They did a great job. And again, this Olivier Brett talked about this. They did a great job at timing that letter.
yeah,
Because what they did is they managed to diffuse so much, and that's the reason that that the press conference felt that way was because instead of facing a mob of angry journalists at your gates going, "Why was this season so bad? What do you have to say for yourself?" No, 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 no. You got all that out of the way. You already said that we messed up. It's not good. We need to change. We are going to change, and you had a whole summer window to kind of expedite that, right?
yeah,
So they got in front of everything. So that's why all the questions left were tactical, management, stuff like that, or clarification. It was more of a conventional press conference than an angry mob. And so I think that they did a good job in dropping, and I think that was also probably in consideration as to why they dropped it in the middle of the season versus dropping it at the end, was, you know, kind of avoiding that. Because
yeah.
remember what happened with Losada? That was a nightmare.
Oh, man, I can't. I was
The
not in the
Losada
room.
presser was, I'm still traumatized by that. It was a disaster, right? And again, like they you couldn't send out a letter like that midseason because they were in contention for a playoff spot. But you want to avoid like post conference like that, press conference like that going down at all, like if at all possible. So putting that letter out definitely diffused a lot of the tension.
Honestly, if anybody ever wants to see a person being cornered and asked questions and feeling at their wits' ends, watch that
This man
Hernandez
showed up
Sara.
with a notebook. He was on. This man was at the witness stand. You know, like
Yeah.
he was being
I'm
cross-examined.
taking
It was
notes. I'm taking
no,
notes.
he would literally because I mean, like all the players went before him, right? So he was literally
Yeah.
taking notes, and he
Yeah.
showed up with like our Calpin, and I was like, oh my god, this
Yeah,
guy's
it
got
was
full defense. You
it
know,
was odd, but I mean, I think at that point, and we've seen it happen way too many times at the club where the players, coaches, or whatever are taken to the wits end and they
yeah.
have reactions. Victor Wanyama. So Prince Owosu is named CF Montreal's 2025 MVP. Victor Rotori, Defensive Player of the Year. Sebastian Breza with the Jason Tutolio Award. You mentioned it earlier. What do you think of that? Any surprises? Did they deserve it? Would you have chosen anything differently? I absolutely love the choice, especially Prince
I
Owosu.
love the choices. I am a bit surprised that Sebastian Breza won it because again, we don't see what happens in the locker room every day, right? We see him passion on the sideline, but that's not enough to win the Jason DeTulio Award. But again, you know, based on everything we know about him, his work ethic, his commitment to the club, stuff like that, I'm not at all surprised. But I was a bit surprised. Funny enough, I thought Victor Latour was going to win it just because the man does not stop working. And you know, just the kind of situation he was thrown into mid-season with having to play with a new midfield partner basically every week and making lemonade out of it. Um, but he won the Defensive Player of the Year award, which is also again incredibly deserved because he was one of the most consistent players this season. For me, it was either him or Luca Petrasso that was going to win
Yeah,
it
I was gonna say Luca
because they were
Petrasa. Yeah.
that would have been you know that's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year just from a consistency perspective. When you have the worst season in club history, you need to reward consistency, and Luca Petrasso was that. But Victor Luturi was a very close second from your second or third, you know, depending on how you feel about David Bugay, who also had a decent season when Marco Donadel took over. That's for the postmortem. We're not going to get into it right now, but I think Victor Luturi was a very deserving, and obviously Prince Owusu. And who else? You know, George Campbell's gone, or else it was going to be George Campbell. But George
Yeah.
Campbell's gone, so I would have still given it to George Campbell.
I mean,
But
yeah.
yeah, let's have him zoom in from England. Be like, George, you won the MVP.
Imagine we're doing that. But no, I mean, look, Victor Lotori to me, I'm not saying he had a bad season, and we'll talk about his season overall, but um, I don't. I think like that award kind of just felt like, well, we need Victor Lotori deserves an award. Like not we don't we're not sure what to give him, but I will give him this one because there's no chance that anyone gets close to Prince Owusu for the MVP. Sebastian Breza, I'm not sure exactly what the qualification is for the Jason Tutuli or what Grinta, how they measure it or what check mark.
It's work ethic and team spirit. That's
If
the
it's
two
just
main things, right?
if it's just based on like you mentioned team spirit and the respect you have in the locker, 100% that's Sebastian Breza. You just have to go to one practice for CF Montreal and realize the kind of impact Sebastian Breza has on the team. It's remarkable. So 100% deserved. Question mark for me as far as the Victor Latour award, but just again, he does deserve some kind of reward. I'm just not sure which one. But yeah. Anyways, let's start it. Let's begin. But just before
Host.
we start, as we always do, just a quick word from our sponsor. Hello, the Ball is Rounders. This show is sponsored by AR Design. I can tell you that in my case, as you can see in my background, I need some change. This is why I reached out to. Wait. I mean, my wife reached out to Allison from AR Designs to bring some change in my space. You can't see it now, but over the next few weeks, this room is about to get a little funky with the way it looks. I thought Allison would come to my place and turn the place upside down right away. But before changing anything, she made sure to really understand what my vision was for our place and what budget we were working for. And based on that, she gave us some advice and some ideas as to what our place could look like in the future. And that's when we knew that we had reached out to the right person. Like a soccer team working together for the perfect goal, AR Interior Design coordinates every detail of your interior design project so your home comes together beautifully. From concept to final touches, Allison makes sure every element works in harmony. Visit ardesign.ca today to see her latest interior design project or follow the links that you see below me on her Instagram, email, or the website, or you can just find the links on the YouTube description. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, AR Design. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, your design. I clearly have not changed anything from the time I made that that ad. So I need to get Allison an AR design to get. I just realized that Bayern Munich hasn't lost a game since July. Okay. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move on with the
Who
post.
cares?
I
It's men's soccer anyway.
I do. Postmortem. Let's start with the goalkeepers because the goalkeeper situation has been one that has been
Spicy.
a little bit. that should we should label the section "spicy moment." So yeah. Let's start with the fun guy, Jonathan Sirois. Jonathan Sirois got a grade when we asked the fans in the report card. He got a 5.8 out of 10. Um. hmm. He started the season, played 28 games, then lost his starting position after the League's Cup. The fans graded him, as I mentioned, 5.8. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Sirois' season?
I think he's a victim of the standards he set his first year under Hernan Losada, where, he hasn't really evolved from that. I think that I'm going to give him a 6 because of just that. Like, I don't think he's been exceptional. I think he's just been all right. But if you're a club that's looking to compete, I think you need more from your keeper. Again, we talked about the distribution being difficult. Yeah, obviously it's difficult, but I think that honestly, he's still a fairly reliable shot stopper. But you can tell there's something that's he needs to add to his game to get to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think I would give him even a 5. I think you're being a little nice just because I feel like if anything he's regressed this year because this was supposed to be his year. It was going to be I believe his third year, right, with the team.
Yeah,
Um, yes, there was a change of scheme, which again to me feels like it would have actually helped them out in the change of scheme, but because was allowed to play a little more back instead of having to be so offensively contribute so much offensively. But I felt like this season he took a step back, and at some point, the club must have had a conversation with him to let him know that if it doesn't work this year, then they might start looking for options because clearly he needed to step up his game to a different level. And what that meant is not just about being a great shot stopper, but also being a leader in the back line. Kind of help your back line to let him know what's going on, what he's seeing, what they can do differently. But beyond that, I also do believe his shot stopping did not improve. I mean, I thought he was. I think he's still great, but I just don't think he improved enough to even be considered for the national team picture, as opposed to Maxime Crépeau, James Patemas that we mentioned earlier. And I think this team wants literally all their starting 11 players to be in contention for their national team, and I don't think Jean Tassirois fit that, and that's why they brought in Thomas Gillier. Do you think he'll be back?
I think he'll be back. I think so. Whether he finishes the season or not, I don't know. But he'll be back to start the season. Look at Robbie being all optimistic, giving him 6.5. Who would have thought that Robbie would be the least less harsh than we are? Oh my
Robbie,
god.
I'm very interested.
Positive Robbie is back. Oh my god. I
I
never thought
want
I'd see the day.
I want Robbie in next week when we have the fun stuff for the ratings. That's when it's gonna be really fun to have on. But yeah. So let's move on to our next goalkeeper because as far as me thinking of Jonathan Sirois, I don't think he's gonna be back just because I think he needs to change the scene, and I think that the club is going to try to capitalize some kind of value on him in the offseason. That's the only reason why I wouldn't see him. Yes, he's going to give you the politically correct answer, like, yes, Elias, I want to compete for my position. I want to fight for it, blah, blah. But I think the writing is on the wall for Jonathan Sirois. There's way
You
too
could,
many goals.
he talked about it. He was disconcerted when Gillier came in and basically just became the starter. Segue into Gillier. I think he got into the net and then did not give a single reason why he should not be in it. That's also a problem for Jean Sirois because I'm giving Thomas Gillier a 7. Right? Again, it's a much smaller sample size. I think he faced easier teams. He didn't face Miami. He didn't face Columbus. He didn't face. I mean, he faced Cincinnati once, right? But he didn't face some of the heavy hitters, and didn't face any of the heavy hitters multiple times. So I think that that is also something that needs to be taken into consideration. The back nine of CF Montreal season was much more uh, lenient. Whether or not they won their games is irrelevant. I think that the quality of opposition was lower. So I think the Majidi probably came out of it looking better. But I just think the way he carries himself and the way he carries himself, not just off the field, we talked about how much we like him off the field. On the field, he has this charisma and this character, and he commands his area with such authority that I think is really something that's a complete deviation um from what we saw with Jean Tansirwa.
Yeah. Look, I would give Thomas Julia a 7, even a 6.5. And some people might yeah, see LP half fan that says Sirois hit his ceiling. Julia, we still don't know about yet, but his ceiling is higher. I don't know, Elias, and this is why I'm giving him a 6.5, because I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are kind of boosting his rating. And by the way, the fans in the report card gave him an average of 7.4 out of 10. And that's what I mean when I'm saying I feel like it's being
It's
boosted.
the novelty, right?
Yeah,
It's the lack of sample size.
that, and also the fact of what he does off the field. Okay, forget about it on the field, because if we just focus on the field, I mean, he was almost as good as, I want to say he was almost as good as what
They were
Jonathan Sirois has
basically
shown.
on the same level.
And
It's
if
just
anything, he
Givier
was.
makes flashier saves.
Yeah, but
Givier will like Bobby Orsi, like wow. Like,
it's not just that, Elias, but he also was not good in his distribution. Something that I said in this show that Jonathan Sirois had improved the last few games. He had
he's
improved
no
his
better
level.
or worse than Jonathan Sirois.
So
That's I feel like that's a lateral move in terms of distribution. I agree with you, right? Jonathan Sirois improved to Thomas Gilly's level, but they're at the same level right now. You know,
yeah. So that's why to me it's, I'm not completely like convinced to boost him that much his grade, because he did make some saves, but nothing says that Jonathan Sirois. Nothing tells me Jonathan Sirois hasn't shown me in the past that he can't make those stops himself, because he
yeah.
has been very capable of. So I'm not gonna give him a higher grade than Jonathan Sirois. They are the same grade to me. They are just as good as each other. But just Thomas Gillier does a much better job off the field. Those press conferences that he's given, every single answer he gives Elias is a fucking quote that can go viral in a second, because he's so good at communicating, but he's also very good at communicating in the field with his players. You can see how passionate he is. So if we're basing off of that, then yeah, his rate increases. Now I have a little scoop for your Elias. Okay.
Ooh.
Um, Based on what I've been told, Jean Sirois was never properly told that he was not the starting keeper when the decision was made that Gillier was going to start. He wasn't told by the coaching staff. He learned another
Uh,
way, and this is something that obviously affected Jean Sirois.
I mean, can you blame him? That's kind of
It's effed up. I mean, like it wasn't handled properly, and
yeah. So like, you're not allowed to be upset with the result, but you could definitely be upset with the way it's communicated to you.
yeah. So this is something that the club is going to have to handle internally. They're going to have to learn how to do it, because I'm assuming it's going to happen a lot more times, not just in the goalkeeping position. We're talking about cases like Samuel Piet, right? That is, we've talked about in this show, and we'll talk more about his profile a little bit later, that he's the captain of the team. What if next year he has to be benched? There needs to be proper communication between
That's
the
for next
club
week.
and the player. Anyways,
That's for next
I'm just
week.
letting you know, like, this is the scoop I
It's
have for you.
spicy
It
next week.
wasn't proper. It wasn't properly done. Last question before we move on to the defenders. What does the goalkeeper room look like in 2026?
Like a fucking mess. But besides that, I think honestly,
Obviously.
um, the club has the chance to breed real competition and a real meritocracy because again, you have two goalkeepers that right now are on basically the same level, right? So now you have a great chance not just to test how this competition affects their goalkeeping, but how it affects their mentality. Thomas Gillier looks to be made of ice, right? Demeanor, the way he carries himself, he is unflappable, he is committed, right? And Jonathan Sirois is a bit more fiery, right? He's a bit more passionate. works his heart in his sleeves. You see him even in the games. You know, he's yelling, he's communicating. So it's very much a fire and ice kind of thing. LP Habs fans saying, "What about Emil Gazdov?"
I don't think
Not
he's
next
back.
year.
I don't think
I
he's
don't
back.
think, unless one of them leaves during the offseason. I don't think he'll be. I
He's
don't think
struggling at a CPL level to get
exactly.
starts.
He may get loaned out. He may do something else. Whatever. Vancouver Whitecaps are up 1-0. Good job, Vancouver.
Let's go.
But again, Emil Gazdov, I don't think is on their radar right now unless something changes because they're just not going to add a fourth goalie to that goalie room. But yeah, I think honestly, it looks like this is a perfect chance to basically take a step back and say whoever earns it earns it, because they both have very different. They're both they're two sides of the same coin. So
yeah,
may the best goalie win.
Yeah, and it's going to be an interesting conversation going into next season, because I don't think, when was the last time that we had a serious goalkeeping competition where you're thinking about Jonathan Sirois, who has been starting for the past 3 years, actually being a bench goalie.
Breza and Pantemis 2021.
Yeah, and how 2022
And
was. I mean,
Pantemis won out. And
yeah,
Pantemis won out, right? Breza brought them to the Canadian Championship, and then his form dipped, and then Pantemis took over, right? Because the year after that, Pantemis got hurt, and Sirois took over and was a rock star, right? But it wasn't a real goalkeeping competition. Sirois came out of nowhere. This is the first time since 2021 that there's an actual competition for the spot.
yeah. Do you think Gillier is the kind of goalie you want to have in this team for a rebuild?
I think so.
Why?
I think they're both good goalies for a rebuild.
I don't
Because
know if
again,
Jonathan Sirois.
Thomas Gillier is an uncompromising figure. He's committed to his team. Again, this is based on anything. We don't know what he's like behind closed doors, obviously. But based on everything we see on the field and in media, he has this unyielding desire to win and to establish that as a common occurrence. He says it, right? It has to be a regular thing that we win every week, right?
Yeah.
Not just, oh my God, they won, right? That we've seen over the last year. So this has to be the baseline. And so for having someone for a rebuild, I think that's a good idea to have, because he understands that you cannot be complacent. You cannot be okay. Just because, you've taken your team out of the wooden spoon conversation and they're back now trying to get into 9th place every season. That's not it.
Hey,
That's
man.
not what a rebuild is. That's, slapping a Band-Aid on a fault line. That's not a rebuild.
I agree with you, and I honestly don't you say the wooden spoon in this podcast, okay? We're far from that. We're over that kind of conversation.
We were 2 points away.
You had that conversation on Thursday.
We were 2
another
points away. I don't know what universe you're on where you're like, well, that's nowhere near us. No,
we lost the wooden spoon. That's what matters, okay? So, anyways, moving on. But look, I agree with you. Thomas Gillier is the kind of guy that, in a rebuild, when there's going to be, and I'm just telling you, anybody that's listening to this podcast, get ready. 2026 might bring a lot of fun, but 2026 will also bring very shitty moments. I think it will, because it's still a rebuild. Now,
what club are we covering?
The Vancouver Whitecaps. What are you talking about?
You make it sound like this isn't like a yearly thing. Where there's fun moments, there's also a lot of shit. Yeah, it's like that's basically the club's tagline.
All right. So speaking of shit, so let's move on to defenders. We're gonna start.
Jesus Christ!
I'm transitioning so well today.
That's an insane segue.
All right, so let's start with Brandon Craig. He played 28 games with no goals or assists. The fans, what did they grade him? They graded him 5.8 out of 10. What are your thoughts? Robbie that said shitty moments or us. Yay! Join the club.
Classic. Look, Brandon Craig, just like some of the other trialists, turned out to be a fantastic bang for your buck acquisition. And I don't think the club's ever going to admit this, but it was probably a Corey Ray pickup, because that feels like his brand. But Brandon Craig kind of came out of nowhere, and was by no means exceptional, but he definitely did his job. And that's the nicest thing I could say about him. I'm giving a 5.8 is fair. We don't give, you know, we're not going to go into decimals. I'm giving him a 6. But I think, and that's because he really just was there, you know? Again, Robbie, you're so nice today, Robbie. Oh my God.
He's on one. But no, I agree. I agree.
I
Brandon
just love
Craig.
the duopoly of the comments. Shitty moments are us, and then 6.5 for Craig. Just 1 minute apart. That's fantastic.
But so yeah, no, Brandon Craig, I'll give him the grade I'm gonna give him is I'm gonna be nice. Okay. I'm gonna give him a 7.0. Yeah.
Whoa!
You know why? Because of the circumstances. His
That's
circumstances
fair.
that change because he comes in as a trialist. He probably expects to start 0 to 5 games the whole season with
Yeah,
everybody
come
ahead
off
of
the
him.
bench. Yeah,
He has George Campbell in front of him. He has Jalen Neal in front of him. He has
Joe Waterman.
Joel Waterman. I mean, and yeah, it is a back three, but there's no. And then everything changed really quick for him, really fast. I mean, he comes from a club in Philadelphia that yeah, things changed the last year, but beyond that, he's always known stability in Philadelphia. Philly is a very stable club. And he comes to CF Montreal, which is shit show from day one, where they spend like 7 games away from the road, and the coach is fired after 5 games, and all of a sudden you're playing a whole different scheme. So in that sense, I'm gonna be nice with him, and I'm gonna give him a 7.0 because I think he adapted really well. Now, the only reason why I don't give any higher is because as I mentioned in the past in the show, I believe that Brandon Craig has the potential to be a good MLS center back. Now, let me choose my words carefully because I'm not saying he's going to be an excellent, thriving, or elite level MLS. He's a good MLS player, which means I think I might be wrong. He might prove us very wrong next year, but I think he'll be always an MLS player, and he might jump around teams. I don't know if it's going to be with
We
Montreal.
need less lifers at some point, right? He's
Yep.
21, and I agree with you. He's in a good spot to become one of those guys that just does his job reliably for years on end. And that's not a bad thing. You know, not everyone's going to end up becoming, Sergio Ramos. And Robbie's saying too high. You're a bit high, Andy. You were nice to Craig, but again, you added your context, so it's fine. But in a vacuum, 7 for Brendan Craig is kind of crazy.
Okay.
It's okay. I think
I'll,
I think everyone's going to be in agreement with the next one. So
I'll stick to it. I'll stick to it. All right. Next up, Fernando Alvarez played 25 games and had 1 assist, but he saw his playing time reduced heavily this season and won't be back in 2026, as we mentioned earlier. Fans grade him 4 out of 10. How did it go so wrong this season? Elias, what's your grade and why?
4 is kind of accurate. It's a shame because he was one of the most talented defenders on the team last year under Laurent Courtois, and this season he just did not adapt. Right from the get go, right from training camp, you're losing your spot to again on the left hand of a back three. With all due respect, you're losing your spot to a 5'9" left back. Right, Luca Matrasso started all the games ahead of you, and I think that kind of just mentally checked him out because he was completely switched off. And then when Laurent Courtois got fired and they switched to a back four, it got even worse. And it reminded me a lot of with the Canadian national team. And I made this comparison pretty much the second I saw him play in a back four, which was Kamal Miller. Kamal Miller, when John Herdman was coach, was the future of Canadian defense. People were lining up moves to Europe with him, right? Because in the back three, he looked like a superstar. He looked like Paolo Maldini out there, right? He was confident. He was great on the ball. He didn't really leave any space behind him. He wasn't a liability. Everything, excellent. And then the second Jesse Marsh came in and they switched to a back four, he's nowhere. Doesn't understand the spacing, doesn't understand the rhythm, doesn't understand, just did not really connect with it. And I think that, again, I don't know how he's doing in Portland. He scored, actually, off of an Ariel Lassiter assist on the weekend to get past Real Salt Lake, which is kind of funny, right? Tabacuetas in Montreal. But
Yes.
I think again, I've only seen him really with the national team, and that switch from the 3 back to the 4 back was a nightmare for him, and that's immediately what I recognized with Fernando Alvarez. He doesn't understand the pacing of it. He doesn't understand the space of it. More importantly, and he was always caught out. He was always caught in between two minds. He never really could make a decision, and it just kept on getting worse. And the less he played, the worse it got. And then it spiraled into a vicious cycle, obviously. But it's unfortunate. I think four. You kind of hit the nail on the head there. Because again, he wasn't actively horrifying. He just wasn't good.
Yeah. I'm going to be even harsher. Okay. You guys
Oh
said I
no.
was too high earlier. Now I'm going to be too low. I'm going to say, I almost want to say a 2.5 for his season. Yeah, he played 25 games, but honestly, it felt like out of those 25 games, he gave us 20 mistakes in each game. And these are not mistakes. Mistakes
Yeah.
happen every game. Even the best players in the world make mistakes. But the mistakes that stand out are the mistakes that are game changing, that are costly to a team, and especially a defender. Whenever you become, I've said in the show, Elias, before, the worst thing a defender can do is become a headline in the game.
Yeah,
You
that's
want
true.
to do
That's
your
true. 100%. That's true.
you want to do your job. You want to, like we mentioned with Brandon Craig, did his job, and that's it. No, nothing more. I mean, if you score goals, fantastic. And I think Fernando Alvarez did score some goals last year. But the reason why I'm such a low score is beyond that. Yeah, you mentioned a bunch of things that happened this year, but the regression year after year with
Yeah.
him, change of scheme. Yeah, sure. But you got surpassed by Brandon Craig in the back four. You got surpassed by every new defender that came into the team. Yeah, they said, oh, he might be injured or might be no. At the end of the day, the excuses ran out. And that's why when we mentioned at the top of the show that we said that there were no surprises, when I saw his name was not in the list, I was not surprised. Was in the list that he was not going out, that he was
Yeah.
going out, then I wasn't surprised because he has regressed with this team. And
100%.
and at his age, there's just no, like, as long as he's been in MLS, you can blame it on adaptation to the league. You can blame it on age. You can whatever, but it's been a regression, and it's been a bad regression that's affected this team. So, given the circumstances that there were so many injuries, suspensions, whatever you want, he had his opportunities to play, and he didn't do anything with them. So, he affected this team in a negative way in the games that he played. And that to me was the problem with him. And that's why I'm going even lower, harsher. And I'm honestly, I will keep an eye on him. Maybe it is a Montreal thing. Maybe the club wasn't a fit for him. And maybe he'll go to another team in MLS or elsewhere, maybe in South America or Central America, and he'll have success. But let's not forget, Elias, at the beginning of this year, Fernando Alvarez changed agents, which might not seem like the biggest thing in the world. But for a player, it is a significant thing to change an agent because it means you have different goals. Maybe your last agent didn't align with your goals. Now you're changing goals. So it's a message that you're sending at the beginning of the season, and it failed. So on a player level, it was a failure. But on a club level, it was also one of their bigger busts in the recent years. He is considered a bust, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, I think so. Right? You bought him
yeah.
for $1 million. You could have made a decent little profit on it if you had sold him. He stuck it out for Laurent Courtois in the second year, and Laurent Courtois gets fired, and he gets left, up a creek without a paddle. So I think absolutely it's unfortunate, but again, it's not to say that this is. I don't want to call this a flop because there were good moments. I'm gonna call this a disappointment because of the way it ended.
I'm calling it a flop. I'm, I'm labeling it a flop, but
It's a free country. I say what I
it
want.
it wouldn't be the first time. So next we have a left back. We have Luca Petrasso, who played 39 games, and had 2 goals and 5 assists. Now, the fans grade, they gave him 6.8 out of 10. Was he a bargain starter, a squad player? I mean, look at the number. Okay? And I know this might not mean much to people, but 39 games and 2 goals and 5 assists. What do you think of that ratio? And that's all competitions, Elias. We're talking about
Yeah,
Canadian Championship, League
there's
Cup.
only one game he didn't play in at all. right? I don't know what that game was, but Montreal played 40 games this year. He missed one single game. So again, that's why we're talking about defensive player of the year. He's definitely up there. Consistency, he's definitely up there. I'm giving him a 7.5. I think he was one of the only good points, consistently good points of the season. That being said, bargain starter or squad player, if I had my pick, he is a squad player, right? If you're committing to Ivan Jaime on that left side, you need someone that speaks his language. Luca Petrasso is a traditional, conventional left back, north south, hard nosed, good work ethic, all good things you want. But when you have the luxury of a player of Ivan Jaime's quality, you need to surround him with, because he's not going to decide games for you on his own, right? There's a reason he cost 5 million and not 50 million. It's because he is good, but he's not a match winner by himself, not yet at least. You need to surround him with the right players and the people that speak his language. In that case, we saw it, right? And again, we saw 6 games of Ivan Jaime. We saw 400 minutes? Not enough. But what we saw is that there are 2 different styles of philosophies of players. Different profiles, stuff like that. People can get along. That's fine. But when they fundamentally view attacking differently, that's where it's going to be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
So if CF Montreal were to go out and get a proper modern left back, I wouldn't hate that. That being said, again, there's a reason I gave him a 7.5. It's because he was solid all year. And if that's the foundation he's setting, he's 25 years old, right? He's not exactly old, but he's more or less hit his ceiling. He's in his prime now. If that's what you're going to get out of your left back every single game, there are worse things in the world, right?
I mean, look, you asked a question, bargain starter or squad player. I'd say he's both. Honestly, similar to the Brandon Craig situation, I'd give him a 7. I agree with Robbie here, where David said part of it is he came from nowhere with 0 expectations, but I still don't know if he's good enough to be a starter. I agree with both comments. I mean, I said the same thing about Brandon Craig. He came in, not knowing if he was going to start. He was going to be a wing back or, like you mentioned, a left center back as a replacement, but he adapted really well to the situation. So I'm going to be nice again, Elias. I'm going to give him an 8 just because, yeah, crazy. But you know what? Tell me, Elias, who else in this team, forget the post-mortem, who else in this team besides Prince Owosu deserves higher than an 8?
We're about to get to him.
Okay.
No, because here's the thing, right? As much as I love Luca Petrasso and his season, and he deserves 7.5, my biggest problem with him is not going forward. It's his one-on-one defending. When he gets on an island with a talented winger, he looks completely lost. Now, it's something you can work on, but his team defense is very strong. The way he works with a center back, I like it a lot. I love it. My problem is that he's been targeted. He's been singled out way too many times, and he's been exposed way too many times. Yeah. So that's my biggest concern. And that's why he didn't get a higher rating from me. Because again, offensively, he didn't, he still provided 2 goals, 5 assists. The runs he makes are excellent. And if he gets a better understanding with Ivan Jaime, just because they're not the same kind of guy, doesn't mean they can't work together in some capacity. My biggest problem with Luca Petrasso is his one-on-one defending. It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good. It needs a lot of work, right? Yeah. Besides that, I think he was really solid.
Yeah, and again, to me, the rating I would give him, as I said, I was super nice, 8.0, was circumstantial. And again, copy-paste from Brandon Craig, right? He was probably not expecting to do much, and he ended up doing a lot for this team, and he contributed in some way. Could he have contributed more? 100%. Would it have helped this team? 100%. It would have helped this team a lot to get wins. But as you mentioned, he's good at what he does, Elias. He's good at offense. He's good at defense. But he is not excellent. He's not elite. So this team, if it really wants to do a proper rebuild and wants to give, and we'll talk about it with the other side. Right now we're talking the left back. But when we're talking about the other side, if you want to give your wingers the most comfortable cushion to be comfortable playing offense, your left back, right back need to do their job properly. And whenever they need to play offense, they need to do it at a decent level that doesn't give the wingers all the pressure. So Luca Petrasso, you get an 8.0 from me, but he can't be a starter next year, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. We'll go to right back. David Bugai, who played 29 games and had 2 assists. Probably the player with the biggest progress this year with the scheme change since CF Montreal changed to a back four. The fans graded him same grade as Luca Petrasso, 6.5 average,
Lower than Luca
in
Petrasso.
his natural position and back at his best. What did you think, Elias, of David Bugai? We had him on the show. I love that kid.
One a great interview too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's why he's an 8 for me. Because you take everything that we said we liked about Luca Petrasso and you just turn it up a notch. And you take into the fact that he's what, 21, 22 years old. He's still a kid, right? His ceiling is so much higher. All of that taken into account, what he brings going forward in terms of delivery, and he doesn't have the same numbers as Luca Petrasso, who got on the end of a lot more. But corner flag to corner flag, he is so strong. He doesn't have a glaring hole in his game the way Luca Petrasso does, right? With the one-on-one defending. Yeah, I Luca Petrasso has better stats. He also played 10 more games, right? But what you get from David Bugai is so complete. And that's why he got an 8 from me, because literally the millisecond that Marco Donadel switched to a 4-back, it's like someone turned the lights back on, because he really is a right back.
Mm-hmm.
Not a right wing back. He's not a right side center back. He did not fit in Laurent Courtois or in Hernan Osada. He didn't fit in any of their systems, because that's not what he is. Right? He did not bring enough going forward to be a right back. He was too much of a right wing back. He was too much of a right back to play right center back. He was caught in two worlds. The second that he played right back, he was instantly one of the best players on the field every time he was on there. And he destroyed his matchup every game. I cannot think of a single game where I saw and I said David Bugai was played off the pitch today. Right? Whether it's with George Campbell on his side, who, by the way, the first half of the season, him and George Campbell, there's a reason that so many people went to the other side of the pitch, because you get nothing on that side. Those were the two best players on the team at that point, operating in perfect tandem, and that's why he gets an 8 for me, because you take out you take out the best player from the first half of the season from his side, and you throw in a carousel of players, whether it's Morales, Neil, Waterman, Craig. Every week it's somebody new, it feels like, and he still performed and he still played at that level. When, regardless of who was there, he gets an 8 for me. And the reason that Petrasso was my defensive player of the year is because he played almost every single game. That's why. It's the consistency, right? Yeah. But David Bugai, for me, gets an 8, 100%.
Yeah, and I agree with the grade. I'm going to give it an 8.0 as well. I don't know why the fans rated him so low. I mean, I can't remember him, like I mentioned examples of Fernando Alvarez, where he would have cost the team or he was a liability to the team. I actually felt like in the worst of moments, David Bugai stepped up and did his role just fine, and he improved the team in some way. If anything, he allowed his right winger. I mean, his game went up so much higher when Henadi Senchuk started going on the right wing, but he in some way helped Dante Sealy also improve his game. Not completely. We'll talk about Dante Sealy in the next pod, but absolutely. And not just that, also the circumstances, like you mentioned, his age. He's got tremendous potential, resale value. I mean, I personally, and I've said it before, I don't think he's getting past this offseason with CF Montreal. I think he's going to be sold. I think he is going to be sold. I think he proved it that he can play at the MLS level and has played in Europe previously, has 2 passports, which you mentioned on the show, which would be tremendous for him and his development. But we'll see. We'll see if he'll be back. If he's back, I'd be super excited, because I think he could be very, very good on that right side. And to see him work with either Efrain Morales or Jalen Neal on that side. But 8.0.
I don't know. I don't know if he's leaving, though. I don't know. If they're committing to this rebuild, you keep him for another year, right? This is not Alistair Johnson, where you let go of a finished product that's ready to play in the Champions League right away. He still needs some fine tuning, right? I'll be Habs fan, and Robbie both say 6.5, and he should be a backup. 6.5 is a bit low. I definitely don't think he should be a backup. We'll talk about Bodhi Hidalgo in just a second, but I think that honestly, everything we've seen from from that boy, and the fact that he ended the season injured. I think people kind of forgot how good he was playing
Yeah.
because he was top level for the whole
Yeah.
season.
And on both ends, I know we talked a lot about his defense, but on both ends, he helped. I don't have his stats in front of me, but I do believe he had a few assists. If not, he was a high contributor to some of those goals
Yeah,
that happened throughout the season. So, um, again, we're not necessarily focused on one end. We focus on both ends. As I mentioned with Luca Petrasso, he was good on both ends. Good, not excellent. David Bugai was excellent on both ends in some games, but he's young and he will make mistakes. This is normal. We saw it with George Campbell. We saw it with other players when they were at CF Montreal. They were young. They made mistakes, but they can be better. All right, let's move on to well, we'll keep it at the right back. So we'll go to Bori Hidalgo, um, who was also a summer transfer from Real Salt Lake and finished the season off with Bugai out with an injury. Fans graded him 6 out of 10. Does Bugai have competition? What do you think, Elias, about
I think he
Bori?
does. I think he has very real competition. I think it's still Bugai's spot. I'm giving Bodi Hidalgo again. It's a very small sample size. I don't want to get too high against again opposition that, excuse me, was fairly manageable. Um, but he like you play against the people in front of you, right? And he controlled pretty much everyone in front of him. So I'll give him a 6.5. I think that he showed a lot of really good stuff. I think that right now that is a very interesting and a very promising player to come off the bench. But yes, absolutely, I think that there's very real competition. And should Bugai have a dip in form, I think that that's a very real player that can pick up the slack.
Yeah, I'll give Bori Hidalgo maybe a 5.5 or 5.0 because the reason being is I don't think he was bad. I think he did a fantastic job defensively. I really liked his defensive games, the when he was replacing David Bugai, but his offense absolutely terrible. I did not like his 1v1s offensively. I thought yeah, there were too many plays that he did not fully understand what was going on offensively. Can he improve? I think he can, but he's not young anymore. If I remember correctly, he's around 26 or
He's
25.
younger than No, he's like a year or two older than Bugai, if I'm not mistaken.
Check on that because I'm pretty sure he's like 25. But
Yeah, he's
and then
23.
what? Okay. But anyway, so if he can improve that attacking, I would give him like a higher grade. But I really felt like his attacking was a liability for the team, as opposed to David Bugai, who, as you mentioned, is younger and already has
Mm.
both phases of the game developed. So I'm excited to see, is he a Bugai competition? I hope so. I hope it brings another side of Bugai that can see him become even a better player. But in any case, for now, Bori
Yep.
Hidalgo, I would not see him as the starter over Bugai because of his attacking. I think his attacking right now is just not there for the team. Um, and we said we're going to stay with the right back, left back. Let's talk about Alexander Guboglu because he kind of played a little bit everywhere. Lies. We're going to classify him as a left back for now because that's how he finished the season.
Yep.
He's an academy product, first year with the first team. What the fans voted him 5.3 out of 10. Formation change, leaving the youngster in them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it kind of. Let's be honest. The switch of formation kind of eliminated Alexander Guboglu's natural position. This is something that when he came on our show, he told us. He said, "I've spent the whole time at the academy playing the wingback position," and I think we interviewed him when Laurent Courtois was still coach. So, yeah, what do you think of his season adapting to this new scheme overall?
Just before we get into that, LP Hazard saying Hidalgo will start next year.
Nope.
And Robbie saying 6.5 for Hidalgo. If he starts, I mean, it's not like he didn't earn it. I think he's played well. I just think Bugai's playing better. But again, I really like what Hidalgo brought so far. I just think Bugai is more established, but definitely super interesting competition to watch next year in that position. As for Guboglu, like we said, right, like he said in his interview that he had on the podcast, which you can check on YouTube, by the way. Um, it you spent not just like the last couple of years, you spent fundamental formational years as a wingback, right? You're talking about like 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. You were a wingback. This is something that like it becomes imprinted on you. So now you almost have to like unlearn something that you've been doing for very important years of your life and play in a completely different system. So I mean, again, I'm giving him a 5. I'm in agreement with Robbie here, but it's again there has to be context here because it's not because he's playing badly, but it's because he deserves some slack.
Yeah.
Because honestly, there isn't a whole lot that was expected of him after the formation change. Because remember, when he benched Shaquille Marshall Rudy, right? Under Laurent Courtois. I think that's important to remember. When they were playing three back, when they were playing with wing backs, he was one of the few players that was really impressing people as an 18, as a 17-year-old at the time, turning 18. So I think that's really important to be remembered because it's this kid is not bad. He's definitely the most like of the eight of between him and Alexander Graham Roche, between the academy graduates, if you will, he's definitely the more MLS ready of the two. But he still needs to develop a little bit more. Alpi Hassad saying he needs to be loaned out to USL and CPL. You know, I agree with you, but at the same time, that's not a proven thing.
Yeah.
That's not a proven path, right? Sean Rea, Jean Yarassi, Alessandro Biello, right? Not everyone is a Jonathan Sirois where they go there, ball out, come back, and then win a starting spot.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
just
look,
not a thing.
yeah, I think I would give Guboglu. It says Alexander Guboglu, so we're gonna call him Alexander
Well,
Guboglu.
I can't type, okay?
But Eliza's like fixing it
Unbelievable.
now, Andy.
Unbelievable. You do this to me
We'll wait.
in front of my friends.
We'll,
You embarrass me in front of my
we're at
friends.
1 hour and 28 mark. Let's keep waiting. Anyways,
That's
so
crazy.
Alexander Guboglu, I agree with you completely. I would give him a grade of 6.5. I'm going to tell you why. Um, because the first few games when we saw him in the new formation, it was tough to watch, super tough to watch because
Stuff to watch at the last few games in the formation.
no. That's what I was gonna say. Why I'm giving him a higher grade because I actually really liked his transformation as a left back towards the end of the season. I liked that he was a lot more assured defensively. He was a lot more physical with the players. I think he has a long way to go. He has to learn the position from zero. But I liked what I saw. I did like what I saw in the sense again, but compare, and I'm only comparing it to himself, not to another left back. I'm comparing it to himself, how disastrous he was at the beginning and how he seems so freaking lost. Elias, I'm sure you've seen it before. Somebody that's new at a job and is new at the
Yeah.
position, and they're like, I don't know what to do. That's what it looked like him on the field. He looked lost, and so it was much better. He looked a lot more sure, a lot more assertive about what he's doing. So that's why I'm giving him a little because I see the potential. I don't think it would be in his favor to loan him out. I think he's proven that does, he can maybe do something here with CF Montreal, but that's something a profile will have to wait and see. We got two center backs to talk about. So let's talk about, to start with Jalen Neal, who played 14 games and he was hampered by injuries after joining the team with a lot of hype. The fans
Yep.
graded him 5.7 out of 10. I personally would give him, I want to give him maybe a 6.5. It's so hard to grade Jalen Neal. I'm so sorry. It's very hard to grade him.
Yeah.
I felt like he was a very good contributor when he was on the field. But that's when he was on the field, which I don't have the stats in front of me, and I don't know how many games he started, but we need to see more of Jalen Neal. I want to see the bad parts of Jalen Neal as well, where maybe the games where he's tough, how does he make up for it? How does he bounce back? So that's why I'm not ready really to give him a grade. If I'm gonna be nice, I guess I'll give him a 6.0, 6.5 based on what I believe he can bring, but it's hard because he barely played, and that's not entirely his fault. When he gave the post game interview in the scrum, he said that he actually, I think he listed his injuries that he had gone through, and it
He
was
did. Yeah.
a long list of injuries, and any human being, and forget a soccer player, any human being, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to
I
deal
mean,
with.
for God's sakes, he showed up to training camp injured, right?
Yeah, so it's so hard to grade him, and you want to almost give him a nice score just because he tried. 2-0 Vancouver, and he, like, you just want to keep, hopefully see that consistency, and I want this off season for him to be one that he dedicates on himself, on his body, and gets bigger in order to have a consistent 2026. So yeah, my grade is going to be 6.5. I think he starts next year. I think he has the potential. I think if he's healthy, if they can really get him physically well, then yeah. And he got appendicitis, so can't happen twice. I hope not. In any case, but yeah,
Literally can't happen twice. I mean, they took that shit out, right? So if it
he had to
happens
live.
again,
Yeah,
then we
exactly.
got a whole other set of problems here.
I'm
But no,
sorry,
I
Jalen.
agree with
I'm
you.
not laughing about your injury.
I agree with you. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate, right? Another player, and again, I don't want to cast too high a comparison onto it, but another player who came in with a lot of hype, who first season was derailed by consistent injuries, was George Campbell,
mm,
right? Injured in training camp. Shout out Mason Toy. Injured in training camp and unable, they'll be having something to do like we do in school, unable to evaluate due to too many absences. Well, that's why some of these players aren't on this postmortem, because anyone that played less than 300 minutes does not get a spot. That's why the Jason DeTulio winner is not in this postmortem, because you don't get 300 minutes, you don't get in the postmortem. That's how that
yeah,
works.
that's it.
Anyway, right, Jalen Neal, it's all about how he reacts to it, right?
Yeah.
Because what George Campbell did was he put on muscle, he got physically more fit, and he turned into a monster that didn't really get injured all that much for the rest of his time with the club for the next 2 years. So again, this is kind of what is expected of him now. Jalen Neal's 21 years old, right? He's still a kid. Take your off season, get your body right, get in the gym, work on your conditioning, maybe figure out if there's an underlying common cause to why you've been getting so many injuries. Because again, it's not like he had one relapse. Everything else is something new. So
Yeah.
again, you get hurt, you compromise, you adjust the way you run or whatever, and then other stuff becomes vulnerable. I get that. But if you find maybe an underlying you take a look at this from a real analytical point of view. I mean, he was going to Bologna, if I'm not mistaken, to do some tests, right? To kind of make sure that everything is in order, and then to kind of properly start your off season on the right foot. That's good, right? We're seeing Efrain Morales, we're going to talk about it in a bit, do the same thing, right? He's recovering in Bologna. So, I mean, Lucas Saputo talked about it, right? They're using and they're taking advantage of this infrastructure, this world class, the European class infrastructure of doctors and physiotherapists and athletic therapists, stuff like that. You have it at your disposal in the off season. Use it, man. What are we doing? So I think that that's a good thing to have. Jalen Neal, it's tough to grade. I give him a 6, right? It's a passing grade because he was all right. I do think, in terms of actual football and not just injuries, he got caught out a little bit too often. In possession, he is already the best defender on the team. But I think that out of possession, he gets caught watching a bit too often. So I loved him with George Campbell. I really like to see what he can do with Efrain Morales. But again, he needs some level of consistency before we can actually label how good this is.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest fear of any soccer player or any athlete in general in
Yeah,
any sport
absolutely.
to be labeled oft injured. Those kind of labels,
They don't go
they
away.
they don't go away. They
They
stay with
don't
you
go
for your
away.
career and they lower
Just
your
like your
value.
injuries.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we got Efrain Morales next, who joined the team in the early summer transfer window. Again, very hard for me to evaluate because I feel like he only played 6 games with CF Montreal. Some might even consider him the first signing since CF Montreal declared a rebuild. The fans gave him a 7 out of 10. Ooh,
Second
ooh.
highest rating of this episode.
Is he the best defender at the club? Oh my God, 7. I was not expecting that. Elias, what do you think?
Look, I love what I saw from him. I love the fact that, you know, he's only going to get better from an experience and composure point of view, right? He's got the one-on-one defending down. He's got the authority down. He's got all this swagger. He's got it all, right? And he understands the psychology behind defending to a really high degree for someone that young. I love everything about him. Is he the best defender at the club? I think so. I really do think so. Right? Again, the sample size is small, but everything that he's shown us, I'm really high on this guy because He has all the tools, all the intangibles, all the stuff you can't really teach for a center back. And he's young, and we haven't seen as much. He's going to get more comfortable, he's going to get more confident, and he's going to get more authoritative with every passing game in the next season or two. And I think, yes, I'll be half saying the bar is low. The bar is world record limbo championship low. But that doesn't change the fact that Efrain Morales is that guy. He's gonna be that guy for sure. And the only reason he's only getting a 7 is because he played a handful of games. If he got a whole season in Montreal, or if he even played every game from the window on out, he would be flirting with an 8 for me. So I'm really high on Efrain Morales. I can't wait to see what he brings next year, and I pray that him and Jalen Neal can get consistent runs together as a center back duo, because that center back partnership is scary.
I'm gonna be mean because I mean, if we're
Boo.
can we just be positive? Positive. No. Look, if we're gonna give
You're
Jalen Neal,
so hard to pin down today, man.
I'm every,
One player you're like Mary Poppins, the next one you're like Satan, man. It's crazy.
you don't know me. Efrain
Exactly.
Morales.
Never let them know your next move, man.
No, it's just that if we're comparing Jalen Neal and Efrain Morales, two center backs, I counted here. We only saw 8 games. Does he show potential? 100% he does. I think he has the physical. We just spoke about physicality with Jalen Neal, how he's, he needs to get a little bit bigger. Same with Efrain Morales. I find that he is a big boy. He's a big boy, like big boy in the back line.
Big man.
But that does, and he is playing. I believe he is a starter with his national team, which is very, very important as well.
That kept the clean sheet against Brazil.
Something that Jalen Neal is not. I don't know when was the last time he had his national team call up. If he has any, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's where he got injured before training camp. But let's also remember that the U.S. is ranked higher than Bolivia. We're apples and oranges here.
I mean, okay, but
but I mean, come on.
Okay. Anyways, so yes, Efrain Morales, I wouldn't grade him higher than Jalen Neal. I mean, I'd say the same 6. We had such a small sample. Does he have potential? Just like Jalen Neal does. They both have potential, but we haven't seen enough. He was injured as well. I didn't fully understand what the nature of his injury was, nor have we had
talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes it even weirder for me. There's certain dossiers that sometimes they're very hush hush about, which is also worrisome. They were hush hush about the whole Samuel Piet situation until he spoke about it, but beyond that, it's been very hush hush. So it's a little bit worrisome what's going on with Efrain Morales. Hopefully, it's nothing long term, and hopefully in Bologna, if they've had a third, I don't know if it's his third opinion, doctor or second, whatever, but hopefully he comes back stronger, and I do believe he is talented. We'll see. All right, so that does it. We are going to finish with our wonderful Tom Pierce, who played 25 games this season, but saw his position essentially disappear with the scheme under Donadel. The fans voted 3.7. Oh, that's so mean, man. 3.7.
Would you give 2.5 to? What are you talking about me?
3.7. I mean, like, why are we giving Tom Pierce such a high rating? So he from top defense prospect to unused sub. This is a storyline to me, Elias. I talked about it before the show with you. Okay. It's not even about what he did on the field. First of all, on the field, I called it before the season. Tom Pierce needs to add another phase to his game because all he's doing is crossing the ball. That's all he does. He plays no defense. He doesn't build up very well. He just does very, very good crosses. That was it. But the problem became is when the games before Laurent Courtois was fired, he was actually taken off the game day sheet. And it was a big saga, Elias. Everybody was talking about it. Tom Pierce didn't make the trip. I forgot to what game, Minnesota, I think he didn't make the trip or something.
Yeah, that was it. It was the second game. It was game 2.
Yeah, and then the Nadal, since I don't know 1 month, he's also been off the game sheet. So was Laurent Courtois onto something? Because the reason why I mentioned Laurent Courtois was because when they spoke to the players after Laurent Courtois was fired, I believe it was Samuel Piet said, oh yeah, the omission of Tom Pierce was definitely something that all the players started questioning themselves, which kind of makes you think that there were rumblings in the locker room that were going against Laurent Courtois. But then Marco Donadel pulled the same thing with Tom Pierce. I give him a 3.0 because I feel that he, at his age, he never adapted to any defensive or offensive part of this scheme. I saw him at practice a few times, as you did, Elias. Didn't impress me in practice to make an argument to be part of this team, and essentially played himself out.
Look, he thrives in environments that have the ball for long stretches of time, right? Whether it's 55, 60, 65% of the ball. That's not what you're going to get with Montreal. That's just not it, right? He works best against low blocks, established defenses, when you don't really have to defend all that much. And when you do, it's mostly just recovering the ball. And first of all, it's not going to happen in MLS, right? You're not playing for Barcelona. You're not going to just sit there and be able to whip your crosses in. And like you said, right, if you don't add variety to your game, if you don't make yourself valuable in other spaces, why are you here?
Yeah.
Your set piece delivery is spectacular. Okay, well, Brendan Craig came in and started whipping in crosses just as good, and Dante Seeley started scoring goals. So that's one of the two things you could do taken out. You are still the best crosser on the team. That is true. But your team doesn't cross the ball anymore. Your team is more focused on creating isolated one-on-one situations with the wingers, and then going from there and creating space in the middle. Right? So your crosses are more either low crosses or crosses that are like a little doink when you get to the edge of the box. It's not like a 30-yard cross that he does so well. That's not a thing anymore. So all of a sudden, he's now kind of just stuck there like, what is my identity here? Right? And then it just got worse. It's very similar to Fernando Alvarez, where the morale took a hit and you could tell he was just checked out. Right? Whether it was training, whether it was when he was on the field, right? It was just, it wasn't there. And, there was a bit of a bump when Marco Donadel started using him at left mid, right? When it was a flat 4-4-2, it wasn't like a 4-2-3-1 anymore. It was a flat 4-4-2. And on the left side of the midfield, there was Tom Pierce. And he got to do everything he does, right? Which is receive the ball 30, 40 yards and put that ball in and really work on defense. Like that was there. Okay. And then Marco Donadel evolved. And now Tom Pierce cannot play left wing. He's not quick enough. He's not good enough one-on-one on the dribble. He just crossed the ball in. It's not going to work. He's not athletic enough to play left back. And you look at the amount of kilometers that Luca Petrasso would log every single game, and you go, there's no way Tom Pierce is doing this. Yeah. So all of a sudden, now you go, where does Tom Pierce fit? He doesn't.
Yeah. So
I give him the same score I gave Alvarez. I'm giving him a 4. I don't feel like being too mean, especially to players that are on the way out of the club. If they stuck around, I'd be maybe a bit harsher, but they're not back. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, right? He's not. They're both not at the club anymore. I'm giving him a 4, and I'm saying, thank you for your service.
What the hell's happening right now? The Robbie tells me, don't be harsh, Andy. 4 for Tom. Guys, I'm giving him a 3. I don't even care. Even though he did F all this season. He did
cyberbullying.
He did not. He did not improve. He did not improve this team at all. Okay. Anyways, it's my opinion. Maybe other people felt that he did more. I don't think so. I think he was a liability at times with his lack of defensive awareness or lack of contribution in offense besides crossing. But man, maybe we see him in England or somewhere else where he's playing and he's actually really a good fit for them, and wish him the best if that's going to be the case. But look, just one last hot take. I know it's been a long night. We've answered a lot, but it's part 1 of a. I just want to know if in a fantasy world, Elias, Joel Waterman and George Campbell are still at CF Montreal today, but CF Montreal still has declared a rebuild. Would they have been an important part of these rebuild? Would you have wanted them to be around? Would they have been one? Do you think they're the kind of players that would have wanted to be part of this rebuild with CF Montreal? I'm talking about George Campbell and Joel Waterman.
Good question. Joe Waterman, absolutely. I still think that he was a fantastic leader and a fantastic player to have in the locker room. He's great motivator, a lot of heart. So I'm 100%. I think that he would be a part of it. George Campbell is a good question because George Campbell, I feel like, is a kind of top level player that you sell for a profit to kind of kickstart your rebuild. So I don't know if George Campbell sticks around. I also don't know if George Campbell wants to stick around, right? Especially with Adnan Saliba, who was the other, again, arguably best player on the team, leaving. I don't think George Campbell, if he gets an offer from Europe, agrees to stick around. Because why would I stick around with a rebuild when I have the championship calling my name? So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they would have wanted to. I think Joel Waterman, as he's seeing it now, he's missing penalties, but he's missing penalties in the playoffs. I mean, I'm okay with that. He's in the playoffs. So career wise, he
Back
was.
penalties are still a sure thing, basically. So you know what? The exception that proves the rule, him and Jack Elliott.
That's it. So I think that he wouldn't have wanted, because I think at the age that he's getting, he would have wanted to maybe go to a club that has ambitions to win today instead of tomorrow. And George Campbell, if he's, maybe he knew about the rebuild when he requested a trade or a transfer, but um, like you mentioned, he would have wanted to be in a team probably that was looking to be more competitive right away instead of a. So no, I say a no to my own question. I don't think they would have been wanting, but they are talented enough to be part of this rebuild
Yeah.
and make a difference in this team. But they wouldn't have wanted to be a part of the rebuild. So that does it for the first part of the postmortem. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. Follow my account as well as Elias' account for daily updates. You can follow us on X, Blue Sky, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're also on Reddit. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week, and thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 244 of The Ball is Round.